I'm at peace with myself and who I am at my core. I don't need those external things to make me happy. And I trust that what the universe is bringing my way is meant for me, and that is enough for me. And that mindset has just brought me a lot of peace. Welcome to the Livfiit Listens podcast, a safe space of growth, personal development, and overall wellness with your host, Olivia Catania. Diving into the realms of all things health, conscious living, mental expansion, and much more, this podcast is designed to help you evolve into your best self and live fit. Let's get into the show. Hello, you guys. Welcome back to the Livfiit Listens podcast, episode 102, and it is Q&A time. If you're new, I like to do these every 10 episodes or so, like a Q&A advice session. I hope you all are doing well. Welcome if this is your first time to the Livfiit Listens podcast, and welcome back to all of my OGs, recurring listeners. I am feeling a little bit under the weather today. I have been feeling a little bit under the weather, but I'm totally that person that doesn't like to admit it to themselves, because I'm healing my body with my mind. As soon as I admit that I'm feeling under the weather, then I'm going to actually be sick. I need to constantly be affirming that I'm healthy or at least getting healthier. But it has been a few days now, and I do feel okay, I feel fine. It's more of a congestion kind of thing. And last night I was speaking, I was hanging out with my mom and my sister, and we were talking for a long time. And by the end of it, my voice got so raspy. This morning, my voice was super raspy, but it always gets better, when you kind of have that head cold kind of thing. It usually gets better in the middle of the day. So anyways, with that being said, these are usually a very lengthy episode. So we're going to see how I do. If my voice gets really raspy by the end of it, you know why. I've been sipping on my emergency. I have some of that here. The elderberry emergency is my holy grail. So hopefully I can hold up, but I just really wanted to record this for you guys because I always love the Q&A sessions. So that brings me to my gratitude that I have today. Last night, like I said, I was hanging out with my sister and my mom, and we were just having such a good conversation. Sunday dinners are a thing in my family. I feel like it's also a very stereotypical thing in Italian families. We get together for Sunday dinners, and I personally love it. And it's such a perk and joy that comes with me living close to my family. And we just had a really, really good conversation last night, and I just felt so thankful that we have that type of relationship and how far my family has come. You guys know I talk about my family honestly a lot on the podcast, and I just honestly felt like I was hanging out with friends, and I just feel like I get enough stimulation from my family that I don't feel a need to be making all these new friends. And I know that kind of sounds pathetic in one sense, but in the other sense, and how I'm feeling about it is I just am so thankful to be able to have that dynamic with my family, because I know that's such a privilege and a blessing. And this morning I was meditating, and I was really sinking deep into that feeling and essence of gratitude. And it literally brought me to tears, because I just was so freaking thankful for my family this morning. It just was hitting me so hard. So let's get into this episode. I asked you guys to ask me questions on my Instagram question box, and then also I left a little Q&A poll at the bottom of last week's episode. If you'd missed it, it's basically if you scroll down on Spotify, there's a little section there to respond. And so you could either send questions in there or through my Instagram. My Instagram handle is just at Livfiit, Livfiit, in case you're curious of where I'm getting these questions from and how you can send questions in for the next Q&A. So first and foremost, my sister asked, when am I going to put her on the podcast? I've had everyone in my family on the podcast except for my sister, Sophia. So that definitely needs to come. I know her and I would be able to talk for hours on here. I'm just struggling to know what my first starting questions, what the theme of our conversation would be, but soon. Okay, this is a good one, kind of blending the mindset theme of this podcast as well as the fitness themes in all of my other social media presence. It says mindset about improving your physique for healthy reasons versus the need to be smaller for society, etc. So basically, I guess this wasn't a question, it was more of a statement, but my takeaway from this is how can you have a better mindset for improving your physique for the sake of your health rather than the need to conform to societal beauty standards and this pressure to look a certain way. This is something that I personally really had gone through when I first started my fitness journey. I was fully trying to change the way I look for external validation to then be seen as desirable, to be seen as worthy, to be seen as like attractive by the male gaze. Like it sounds so pathetic, but it's so real. And it was definitely something that 18-year-old me was like really struggling with. And the thing with that intention, when you are, pursuing healthy practices from that intention, like it's almost always from a space of self-hate. Like if you are trying to change yourself out of fear of not being accepted and valuable enough and worthy enough as you are, like you are acting from a place of fear and like desperation and like this desperation to seek validation. And whatever your intention is, like this was such a good lesson that I learned. Like your intention is what actually manifests, not like what you're desiring. So for instance, this is the perfect example. If your desire is to look a certain way and change the way you look, but your intention, the place that you're pursuing those actions from is from this place of self-hate and like this desperation for validation and seeking something outside of yourself to be worthy, like that's what's going to manifest. And yes, the outside of you may change, but your internal, how you're actually feeling on the inside, that fulfillment that you're trying to feel isn't going to be there, because what's only going to have grown is your intention, which in this case was all of that kind of self-hate, if you will. So a huge switch for me and mindset shift for me was to really focus on wanting to take better care of my health out of a place of self-love, just simply because I deserve to be in my best health. I deserve to feel proud of how I perform in the gym. I deserve to feel happy and confident when I look in the mirror. And when I noticed such a big difference no matter what my outcomes were. I noticed such a big difference in my internal when I was approaching it from a different space internally and like having a different intention with it. Okay, this is an interesting question. She said, do you think everyone is meant to have a big purpose, or are some meant to be average? And then the second part was, do you think people's limiting beliefs are what hold them back into being average? I think this is super situational and subjective, I want to say, because I do think my answer is yes. My short answer is yes. I do think some people are meant to have, I don't want to say a big purpose as if someone has more of an important purpose than others. I think some people have a purpose that is with a larger impact, or a purpose on a larger scale, if you will. But I don't mean this in the sense of, if in your heart and soul, you have this burning desire to leave a really big impact, but you're maybe not experiencing the success that you want to experience, or you feel like you're not on that scale or level of impacting that amount of people yet. I don't believe that that's like, oh no, you're just meant to be average. That's why you haven't experienced that level of success yet, or their level of impact yet. I don't think that's true. I think if you have this desire within you, you have those desires for a reason. That desire is imprinted on your soul because your soul knows that it's meant for you in this lifetime. That was like a huge thing that I'm always affirming to myself when I think that I'm like, oh, maybe I'm not meant for this or worthy of this. Like if you want it, if you desire it, it is always going to be meant for you. But I mean, on the contrary, like I do believe there's some people who just genuinely want to live a simple, small scale, quiet life. And like that's their genuine desire, and they want to go to work at a normal 9-to-5 desk job. They want to have their kids. They want to have a husband. They want to live off the grid and just like super, super small scale living. And like, yes, I guess that's more seen as quote unquote average. Again, I'm really not trying to say any is good or bad or better or worse. I'm just trying to state the difference for the sake of like in the context of this question. And so in that case, I don't think people's limiting beliefs are holding them back to be average in that case, if that's their genuine desire. Like I think that's what their soul's contract is, and that's what they resonate with, and that's totally okay. Because again, I don't believe that everyone genuinely wants to be living this grandiose, loud lifestyle. But with that being said, kind of circling back to what I said in the beginning of this question, I do think that some people who in their heart and soul want and feel like they want to leave this really big impact on the world, but they're too scared to go for it, or they feel like they don't have what it takes, or they feel like they're not cut out for it. That is when I feel like people's limiting beliefs are holding them back into being average. I thought that was such a cool question So thank you for that. What area of life makes you feel the best right now? This is also a cool and cute question. I was going to say cool and cute at the same time. 100%, it's my family life. It's my home life. Of course, not everything is always perfect, and there's people that I butt heads with and whatever, but this is the best my family life has been, like literally ever. My parents were divorced when I was 4, and like I don't have any memory before that time. So like truly when I say like this is the best my family life has ever been, ever, of my like remembrance. So definitely I feel the most fulfilled and happy by my home life right now. Ooh, this is a good one. How do you still accept yourself while having goals that you're working towards? This is so important, and it's literally like an imperative, crucial step when you are working towards your goals, because that radical self-love gets you so far, and it really is a cheat code in life. Because if you feel like you are not worthy now before you've quote unquote achieved anything external, you're never going to feel worthy and good enough. And we so often think that we need to achieve our dreams or achieve our goals or create that manifestation first so that we then will feel a certain way and feel like we're good enough and feel like we can accept ourselves and finally feel proud of ourselves. But the thing is the emotion is what draws those circumstances towards us, whether you believe it in the context of manifestation or in a very tangible explanation of like our emotions are what drive our thoughts, which then drive the actions that we take in life. So if we're constantly already feeling now that we're not good enough, that we don't have what it takes, that's going to impact, our thoughts that we're having and therefore our actions. And we're not even going to put ourselves in the rooms, in the environments to get these said opportunities to allow our dreams to come into fruition. So I think that is the biggest scam and misconception that everyone thinks like, oh, I'll be proud of myself when, or I'll feel worthy when, but we're having the process backwards, because what actually needs to come first is that feeling of loving yourself, of having a high self-image, of having high self-worth and confidence and value. You need to feel that way now in order to step into the version of you that has what it takes, I want to say, to take the action and put in the work to achieve the dreams that you're desiring. So accepting yourself first is like absolutely critical. And you asking that question is just showing to me that you maybe base a lot of your self-worth and value based off of what you have achieved and your productivity, and I think you should really work on trying to rewire your brain a little bit and have grace with yourself and understand like, I don't need to do anything. I don't need to achieve anything to then be worthy and acceptable and lovable and capable and valuable. Like you are all those things now as you are as a soul. Those feelings are a birthright. Like, that's kind of like saying the same thing. Like when your baby is born, like they need to be doing something to prove that they are worth us loving them. Like, no, we love a baby because we love a baby. Like they quite literally offer no tangible value to the world. They're helpless, they're vulnerable, but we still love them, right? And they're still worthy of respect, of care. And so that's the same thing you need to have with your adult self, of understanding like it doesn't matter what I've achieved or what my resume looks like. Like I am worthy now. I can accept myself now. I can be proud of myself now. Like I am worthy, valuable, lovable, everything right now. And that's going to directly help to increase your self-image and therefore expand your horizons of what you see as possible for yourself. And it's going to open your awareness to more opportunities that you can actually seize when you're looking at life through that lens with a high self-image and this radical self-love. I promise it is a complete game changer. How to be open to long-term relationships as a child of divorce. This is such a good one. Like I said previously, I'm also a child of divorce. My parents divorced when I was 4, and I remember I dealt with a lot of trauma and resistance to relationships with my first ever boyfriend. I remember like the first time that he said, I love you, that I was like I was so scared to say I love you back. And I don't think I did for a few days because I was petrified that like I thought that meant like this means we have to get married and we're going to be dedicated to each other, or he can't say I love you because if we break up that means he didn't mean it. Like I just was so confused with the dynamics of relationships and how that they could end and how you just become a stranger with someone and how do you hate someone that you used to love. And like, because all I had was my parents, you know, as the example of like they hate each other, but somehow they used to love each other. And so it made me almost not believe my first boyfriend when he said that he loved me, if that makes sense. Or it made me be like, if he says he loves me, like, this is it. Like, I can only say I love you if I feel like I can marry him. I just had a lot of like these commitment issues and all of that sort of stuff. And so I think my biggest piece of advice with this is it's brave to stay open. And I don't know if I'm going to remember the quote exactly, but there's a quote that says like life is a lot more vibrant. You're a lot more vulnerable when you open yourself up to love in life, but there's a lot more vibrancy that comes with it, essentially along those lines. And so it's like, yes, if you want to, like, you can curl up, you can grow cold and hard from the heartbreak that you've experienced in your life. You know, you can grow resentful. You can start to close everybody off, right? That is an option from heartbreak. But the thing is all that's doing is isolating you. It's closing you off from the beautiful spectrum of emotions and of all the feelings in life. And yes, you can curl up into your safety cocoon and go into your shell and live life that way and just miss out on like half of the beauty of life. Or you can be brave and you can be courageous and you can continue to stay soft. You can continue to stay open. You can continue to stay vulnerable. And I think that was something that I really worked to embody from a younger age, or like from early on in my relationships, because I just realized like what is more respectable in my opinion, what's more admirable in my opinion, is those who stay open even after heartbreak. No matter how many times they've been pushed down or how many times they've been told no, like they're still going to remain hopeful. They're still going to stand back up and they're still going to be vulnerable again to love again. And there really is so much strength in vulnerability and continuing to put yourself out there, and just that persistence and perseverance of just continuing to open yourself up, even though you're always going to be at the risk of being shot down. Like, something about that is so beautiful to me and so admirable to me. I literally almost can't even explain it, but it's been a viewpoint, I want to say, that I've had for a really long time. And so I think, to directly answer your question, I think it just comes down to reminding yourself that like you are brave and you are courageous, and asking yourself that question of like, okay, fine, I can curl up and close everyone off, but like, am I willing to, is it really worth just the concept of staying safe? Is it worth cutting myself off from half of the beautiful emotions that come with life? Is it worth closing myself off and staying safe and missing out on all those things just for the sake of staying safe? Like, is that really worth it to you? And to me, I'm like, no, like I want to experience as much as life as possible. And I'm totally the person who is, I would have had rather loved and lost than not love at all. Like, and I've believed that since I was 15. I think I'm just a lover at heart. And something about loving is brave to me. And it like makes me emotional thinking about it now, but it's true. Like, loving is brave. And I think it's just courageous to step up to the plate and keep an open heart and wear your heart on your sleeve and say, I have so much love in me that I'm not scared to give it, no matter how much of a risk I am to get shot down, because that's just how much I believe in the potency of the love that I have to give. I really do empathize with the one who sent in this question, because I really, really, truly get it. Like, being scared of marriage and scared of long-term relationships, because what if things end? But I think it's also mastering the art of detachment as well, and just radically accepting the present moment and not trying to force things. And just because things come to an end does not mean that they weren't pursuing in the first place, does not mean that it was necessarily like this bad thing. Eventually all good things come to an end at some point or another. And so just practicing that detachment and saying like, I'm here and now, I'm present in this relationship, I'm along for the ride as long as the universe allows us to play out, brings me a lot of peace, because at the end of the day, we can't always control relationships or people to stay in our life. You know what I mean? So there is a component of detachment and just surrender and trust in these situations. And I just don't want to ever let a bad experience from someone else, in this case, our parents, be what creates a limiting belief in me or be what instills a fear in me. Because just because that was their story doesn't mean that it's mine. Just because our parents got divorced doesn't mean that we have to get divorced. And so for me now, like a huge life goal of mine is to get married and do my best to have a committed relationship. And, you know, we can only hope that it will be one that lasts for this lifetime. But at the end of the day, I just don't think that we should allow something unfortunate that happened in our parents' life to diminish or make us scared to pursue something in our own life that we have a completely new and fair chance at experiencing and pursuing. Ooh, I'm 19 and struggling with anxiety about the future. I know it'll be okay, but I can't stop overthinking. This is such a good one. First of all, you're so young, which I know so many people have probably told you that, and you're like, I don't feel young, sis, and I totally get it. Getting present when you're in bouts of anxiety or overthinking is so important, because when anxiety is present or when overthinking is present, like you were almost always never in the present moment, you were almost always thinking about the future, and that's what's creating these anxious thoughts. And a piece of advice that I always think to myself that is not the most comforting, but it is freeing, in my opinion, is just that no one knows the right answer and no one is going to know the answer, right? I can't predict what's going to happen to you. You have no idea what's going to happen in your life 3 days from now. So worrying and having all this anxieties and overthinking and trying to figure out how exactly life is going to play out is honestly just a waste of energy, because no one actually knows. So that's like me trying to figure out this crazy math problem or something, I don't know, that just doesn't even have an answer. Like you're just wasting energy and making yourself go mad when there's nothing productive in that mental conversation or like in that mental flurry, I want to call it. And I think this really also goes back to just surrendering and trusting your path. And I know it's not an easy thing to do. And a lot of us, especially when we are anxious, a lot of us like to try to control everything in our life, every piece of our life. We like to know what's happening next. You know, okay, what's my plan for this? What's my plan for this? What about this? Like that hyper control mechanism is a kind of trauma response, or it's a coping mechanism for anxiety, because it makes us feel, our brains feel safer when there's less unknown. But the thing is so much of life we cannot control. Like 90% of life we cannot control, in the sense of just like things are freaking flowing, you know, and we have no idea what opportunities are going to be presenting themselves. We have no idea what decision is going to be created from making this initial decision. Like there's so much domino effect and butterfly effect and all these things. There's just so much that is bigger than our little human brain can comprehend. And so doing what you can to just take a breath, to surrender, and just honestly, quite literally accept the fact that we can't control every single component of life. And that's okay. Like that is okay. And if anything, that should be something that brings us peace, because if you actually sit and think about it, if we had to actually control every single minutia, like I'm talking down to like, when's the green light going to change? And so that when is this guy going to cross the road then? And what about when this person gets out of her car? Like if we had to control everything in life, we would be exhausted. Talk about decision fatigue. So it's like, it's honestly a blessing that so many things are kind of playing out themselves, that we don't have to be making all these micromanaging decisions. So I'm kind of getting off on a tangent here, but I think it's just really about trusting and surrendering and making peace with the fact that like you don't need to control every aspect of your life, and that's okay. Like there's been parts of your life that have been unknown and you've survived it and you're here and you figured it out. So there's bound to be more unknown things coming in the future, but that is also so okay, because you have proof and evidence from the past that you made it through. And the last thing I want to say is use the unknown of the future to create excitement. Another great quote I love is replace the fear of the unknown with curiosity. It's so good. Use this time to get excited. Like honestly, it would be so boring. Life would be so boring if we knew exactly what was coming our way, when it was coming our way, how it was coming our way, who was coming our way, it would be so boring. That's like sitting down to watch a movie and someone already told you everything that's going to happen. You're like, well, you freaking ruined it. Thanks, dude. Like, I don't want to watch it. It's the same thing with life. So like, use this time to get excited. And like, to be honest, I'm someone that has really switched my perspective. And now I do get excited when I'm feeling like super lost. I'm like, I have no idea what next week is going to look like. I've really grown to get super excited by that because I'm like, that means things are changing. That means things are new. Like, that's exciting. And that's what makes life worth living. Otherwise, life would be so boring and mundane. So there really is a lot of beauty in that unknown in the future. I feel like I'm going so deep into all these questions, but I'm just kind of channeling when I start to answer these. This one I also really love. It says, how do we find and grow into our independence and individuality? I feel like I always sound like a broken record because I'm always like, spend more alone time. And like, yes, I am an introvert and I like my own company, so maybe I'm biased. But for me, like, I do feel very strongly rooted in who I am. I feel like I am not super heavily influenced in the sense of like, I don't feel this insecurity or like need to like change myself to be like the next person. And I think that comes down to me seeing the beauty in who I am and treating myself as I would a friend. You know, I admire all my friends for how they are and who they are. And like the fact that there's only one of them and like the little things that they do that it's so unique and specialized to them. Like, that's what I think is so cool and like enticing and like magnetic and unique and beautiful. And so I had this realization of like, that's the same thing with me. You know, like those little things that make me is what's cool. Like, that's what makes me rare and unique and like special. And so owning all these parts of my individuality and like what makes me, it has allowed me to see like how special that is because there really is only one of me. And then spending more time alone also allows me to like form my own thoughts, my own opinions, my own sense of style. Like, sometimes, you guys, like, and like, no hate at all, truly. And like, I think this is just like a me thing because I am more of a solo rider. I like to chill by myself, but like, I think of sometimes of like these people who are constantly around people 24/7. I'm like, I get so influenced when I'm just saying, like, I take on people's mannerisms or advice. Like, obviously, like, we're all kind of sponges. And so it's like, I think that's a beautiful thing of exchanging ideas and advice and all these things from other people. I do think that's beautiful and valuable. And I think we should continue to do that. But I do think there needs to be a balance in there. And like, some people that are always surrounded by people 24/7, I'm like, do you even have your own sense of self, like who you are separate from all of this? Because I personally feel like it would be so hard to hold that, you know, stay grounded in who you are and rooted in who you are and anchored in who you are when you're constantly surrounded by all these people like telling you their thoughts and opinions and what you should do and what they think you should wear. It's like, I think it's just a really great exercise. I'm not saying for you guys to go to like freaking hermit mode, but I do think it's important to prioritize alone time a few times a week just so you can sit with your thoughts. You know, even the little things of like, I'm not going to text my friend and ask what she's wearing to the party because it doesn't really, like, I'm myself, you know what I mean? And like, I can wear what I want to wear and I don't need to base what I'm wearing based off of she's wearing. Like, that's a form of codependence, honestly. And so little things like that of like, I'm not going to ask my friends for which picture to post on Instagram because those are little opportunities for you to really step into your own independence and your own sense of self and feel more confident in your decisions and to be able to own your own decisions. So again, I'm not trying to demonize anything. Like, I ask my friends for advice. You know what I mean? I ask my friends of what to wear. I'm not saying I don't ever do these things, but again, it's just like a balance where most of the time, like, I'm making these decisions on my own because it helps me have a greater sense of self, of who I am, and it gives me an opportunity to express and practice that confidence in who I am. Someone said tips for comparing yourself to others. I remember I did a whole podcast episode about this back when I was in Hawaii. So this was like 2 years ago. In 2022, if you guys want to scroll back, it's probably like episode like 40, anywhere between like 20 and 50, episode 20 and 50. But I really loved that episode. But the biggest thing, again, this kind of goes back to what I was saying a few questions ago of like, what makes you you is your rarity and like your specialty. And like, that's something to own. And someone else's beauty, someone else's success. Like, this is a huge thing that I've really been putting into practice. Like, someone else's beauty, someone else's success, someone else's accomplishments, someone else's experiences do not take away from your own. And I think that's a very egoic place to be thinking of. It's a very egoic mindset. Again, I've totally been there too, openly expressing it's something I'm working on as well. But I just almost wonder where it stems from, of like, just because, why do we think when someone else is pretty or like looks good, that automatically means that we are the opposite? That means that we are not pretty. That means we do not look good. Or just because someone achieves something means that we are actually failing. You know what I mean? Like, it's kind of crazy. It's like, no one said that. Like, it purely is an assumption from the ego that has no like real evidence about it. And it honestly doesn't make sense when you think about it. And so I think just having that awareness of being like, this actually isn't truth. Like, just because so-and-so, I saw something online of someone buying their first car, or they got a cool opportunity to record at Spotify or something, that does not automatically mean that I'm failing. We said nothing about me. You know what I mean? Or like, just because you saw someone who got the work promotion doesn't mean that you're failing. Like, no one said anything about you, actually. Like, it. So I think remembering that puts a ton into perspective. And another thing that I want to say is, we are not all meant to have the same experiences in this lifetime. So an opportunity that someone else got does not necessarily mean that you are bound to have that as well. And furthermore, we are not all on the same timeline. And again, I think it goes back to, the more that I get into spirituality and mindset, the more I realize that the most peace comes from a humble mindset. And what I mean by that is, so many of us live life with this entitlement, or feeling like, she looks good, I need to look that good. Or she got that opportunity, I should have that opportunity. Why don't I have that opportunity? Or she got that compliment, why didn't I get complimented? Everyone thinks I'm ugly. Like, it's just a very egocentric, entitled viewpoint when you think about it, when we're talking about the thoughts that we have that make us upset or like self-deprecative. It's like, why do we have to make it about us every time that someone else has a cool opportunity or whatever? And B, why do we automatically feel like we need to be having every single opportunity that everyone else is having? Like, I just don't think that is the case. And I think practicing that humility of being like, wow, that's really cool. I'm happy for them, and just having that be what it is. And so I think there's something very humble about just being like, wow, that's really cool. I'm really happy for them, and having like allowing it to end there, and not like feeling this need to also take as well for yourself, and just remaining like, I'm at peace with myself and who I am at my core. I don't need those external things to make me happy. And I trust that what the universe is bringing my way is meant for me, and that is enough for me. And that mindset has just brought me a lot of peace when it comes to like seeing other people with cool opportunities or cool lives, and like bringing me peace. And another thing is, like, I feel like rather than getting jealous or upset about when you're comparing yourself to other people, like, use that as inspiration. Like, again, we're still always co-creating in our lives, right? Like, when I say that there's a lot out of our control, it's true, but there also is still a lot that is in our control in life, right? Like, we can control our controllables, right? We can control our actions, our thoughts, our emotions, all of that. And so use this as inspiration for what other people are doing. Like, if you're feeling jealous of what other people are doing, have the awareness to say like, hey, that's actually triggering me. That's pinging my ego, because actually deep down, I'm wanting what they have. And that's why I feel jealous. And so use that jealousy as almost a spotlight to reveal these shoved down hidden desires within you that you've been too afraid to pursue or admit to yourself, and use it as a guiding light to say, oh, okay, this is actually something I'm wanting. Like, maybe I should put in some more effort and take the steps to pursue something like this if it's something I'm wanting and desiring and what will make me happy. So I think it's about understanding that someone else's achievements or beauty does not take away from your own. A flower is beautiful, just like a sunset, even though they're two completely different things. Stop feeling so entitled to feeling like they had that cool experience. Why am I not having it? Stop making it about you, and just have a more humble mindset of like, that's great for them, and I don't feel the need to take my piece of that pie too. Like, I'm content with where I am and what I have now. Surrendering, trusting in your path, finding inspiration from other people, and allowing jealousy to highlight your true desires. That was a really big answer, but that's my answer. You guys know I'm all about living my healthy lifestyle, and a huge component of that is making sure I'm getting in my vitamins and minerals and all of my nutrients. And so that's why I really love to have a greens powder on hand, just because it makes it so much easier and more convenient to make sure I'm fulfilling any nutrient gaps that I may be having in my diet. So I've really been loving the Live It Up Super Greens because you're getting exactly what you paid for with this product. There are no fillers, no unnecessary added ingredients. There's no artificial sweeteners, no artificial colors, no artificial flavors, no stevia, no nothing. You're just getting your 20 superfoods, your probiotics, and your digestive enzymes in every scoop. So since it is not artificially flavored, they do have peppermint leaf powder in here, which gives it kind of this minty taste, which I personally find really refreshing. They do use organic vegetables, which I always look out for and really appreciate when it comes to a greens powder. And I just find I always have better digestion. I'm not as bloated. I feel like I have better immunity and more energy when I'm more consistent with taking my greens. And another really big advantage when it comes to Live It Up Greens is that it's very affordable. A lot of greens powders can get pretty pricey pretty quickly, but this is only $1.33 per serving. And you can also save 10% on your greens purchase with my code Livfiit10. So again, that is LIVFIIT10. And you can purchase your greens at letsliveitup.com. And I will also have that linked down below in the show notes. And I just want to say a huge thank you to Live It Up for being the first ever official sponsor of the Livfiit Listens podcast. Another one is talking about staying in your power. I feel like these are all like podcast topics, but I'm doing like little mini bouts of whatever advice comes through to me. So with staying in your power, this was my second ever episode. Still, honestly, my best and favorite episode to date. It was such a magnetic, powerful, freaking empowering episode too. So tips for staying in your power. The biggest thing I want to say with this is you need to constantly practice that awareness of when you're talking down to yourself, when you feel like you can't do something, when you're too scared to vocalize your needs, when you're too scared to go for that opportunity. You need to fully recognize that you are fully acting from your ego. You are acting from fears. You are acting from limiting beliefs. You are acting from past programmings that other people projected onto you that are not necessarily truth. They were other people's experiences that they projected onto you, or they were your own experiences from the past that you really took to heart that are not that deep, and that you still have the power to change that narrative and belief system. But the thing is, until you do that, you're going to still be experiencing confirmations of those belief systems of the past because you haven't rewritten that story. And the way the brain works is that our subconscious brain is constantly looking to validate and prove and evidence for what it already believes. So if you're believing all of these negative things about yourself, that you don't have what it takes, that you are never going to get the opportunities, that you're unlucky, your brain is going to continue affirming those belief systems. Even though you've had good nuggets in your days, it doesn't care. It's only going to be looking for that evidence of those negative belief systems are going to be what's highlighted to you. That's what's going to be amplified throughout your day. And it's going to make you feel like, see, this is all I experience. When really that's what your subconscious brain is looking for, right? So your brain is always going to find what it is looking for. So when it comes to staying into your power and being your best self and channeling your higher self, like, you need to firstly rewrite your belief systems in the sense of really working on cultivating a more prosperous self-image, right? How are you talking to yourself? What do you believe is possible for yourself? What do you feel like you deserve? What do you feel like you're worthy of? Like, that's where you need to dig deep and rewrite those narratives and rewrite those scripts. And then that's what your brain is going to start looking for. Then your brain will start to find confirmation of those things. It's just like when you're on the road before you get a new car, you've never seen that. I have a perfect example. My boyfriend got a new car a few months ago. I'd never noticed the car. He got the car. Now it's in my awareness, and now I see it all over the place because I'm looking for it. I notice it. It's in my awareness. So it's the exact same thing that happens with the subconscious brain. So when you're rewriting these scripts, these narratives to more prosperous belief systems for yourself, like, your brain is going to find those narratives and find proof of those narratives, and then that's what's going to be amplified and echoed in your reality, in your perspective, and your life is going to get a lot more prosperous, and you're going to be feeling, quote unquote, a lot more lucky. That kind of was so to the side. Again, that just was a message that kind of channeled that came through. But what I originally was going to say is when it comes to staying into your power, the biggest thing that's so important is remembering to act from your higher self. I think what I was saying that is because when our ego is so clouded, that's what's projecting onto our reality. And it's so hard to stay in our power because we're living from all of that past programming in our ego. So when you can reprogram that to align with more of your values and beliefs from your higher self, it's so much easier to stay in your power because it's in alignment with your belief systems. I don't think many people are aware of how we are living from the day to day is dependent on our belief system. So if you can upgrade your belief systems, you'll be upgrading the life that you're living. And so when you catch yourself talking down on yourself or feeling unworthy or feeling like there's no point in trying to apply for this opportunity because I'm not going to get it, you need to say, that is my ego speaking to me. That is fear. That is limiting beliefs. Your higher self is always going to be an advocate for you. Your higher self is always going to lean into the best option for growth, for expansion, for taking yourself to the next level. Like your higher self is never going to be like, nah, there's no point, you're not going to get it. Like that's not your higher self talking. And I can literally promise you with that. So staying in your power, it is imperative for you to only be listening and channeling your higher self if you're looking to actually stay in your power, because that's where you're going to be getting those nuggets, that reassurance of like, I do have what it takes. I'm worthy. I'm only looking for the route that is self-serving, that is going to allow me to take things to the next level, that's going to be ridden with growth and ridden with expansion. And that's where I need to go to stay close to my soul's expansion. I'm 22 and have never been in a relationship. Advice for feeling like there is something wrong with me. I love this and I want to do a whole episode on this. It also was requested because a while back when I was doing an Instagram question box for Instagram, I got a question about like tips for, I don't know, like getting ready for a relationship kind of thing. And so I definitely want to do an episode all about this. But first and foremost, there's absolutely nothing wrong with you, sweetie. Like, swear. I know people who are way older than you who have not had any experience in the dating world, and that is okay. Like, there is absolutely nothing wrong with you. That's not weird. That's not anything to be embarrassed about. And like, I truly believe that. I'm not saying that to be nice. Like, you are still so young. And honestly, as I gotten older, I realized like theoretically, you know, if we're wanting a long-term partner, it's like we have our whole freaking life to be with this person. You know what I mean? Like, there's no rush, honestly, is what I feel like the older that I get. So please don't feel like anything is wrong with you. Like, it's way, way, way more normal than you think. And I know that so many people listening were like, had a sigh of relief of like, oh, me too. I know at least I'm not the only one. But what I will say is I think empowerment starts with taking radical responsibility for yourself and your actions. And I think the biggest thing when it comes to being ready for a relationship is really working on yourself, which sounds so cringy, but relationships are honestly the biggest, most potent, most powerful mirrors that there are. Your relationship is going to reflect back your shadow parts. It's going to reflect back your triggers. Like if you want to grow, relationships are the quickest way to do that. Like, there is so much growth that happens when you are kind of in tandem with someone else or working alongside someone else and being in a relationship. So I want to say, do the inner work. Really try to do some shadow work and really reflect and write down on a piece of paper and say, what are my actual beliefs when it comes to a relationship? Like, why do I feel like I'm not in a relationship right now? And things may start to come up for you of like, I actually don't feel worthy of love, or I don't feel like anyone actually is going to find me attractive, or I'm actually really scared to open myself up and get really emotionally close with someone. I'm scared to be vulnerable. These things are things that may come up for you. And those are things that, again, are blocking you on the subconscious level because it's closing up your energy. Again, everything is energy, so much energy, especially when it comes to connecting with other people. If your energy is so closed, there's going to be no energetic match, right? There's going to be no need because you're a closed circuit. It's not going to want to attach to anything. So if you can do what you can to, again, rewrite these limiting beliefs, heal those things within you, become open and receptive to love again so you can have an energetic match, like that's when things will actually, the ball will actually start to roll. And honest truth is that before I'm with my current boyfriend, I did a lot of healing, because before that time I was single for like a year and a half, like didn't speak to any male in a year and a half, which was a long time for me. And I was like, you know what, like I'm freaking ready to be in a relationship. And I just looked really honestly at different parts of myself that were closing me off to love. Because if you're feeling like you have no love options, it really is because something on the subconscious level within you, like your energy, is blocking you, it's repelling you. So take responsibility of that and start to do what you can to open yourself up to love in your life. This is an interesting one. What's your opinion on the fitness community on socials? I don't think I'm going to answer this in the way that you may anticipate for me to answer it. I overall still like the fitness community on social media. Like I don't feel any which way. Like, of course, there's still toxic things online or like misconceptions, misinformation that's always going to be there. Like, honestly, on and off social media, like that's going to be everywhere. But the one thing I do have to say that's coming to my mind is I've been feeling almost a little bit frustrated lately of how, and this may be getting me heat, but I'm speaking my truth. I feel like there's this hypersensitivity online and everyone takes everything out of context. And I think there's a lot of unforgiving people or a lot of uncompassionate people or a lot of people who are just not flexible in their interpretation, and they take things at this one specific face value that was their initial perception, and they don't take the time to like be open-minded and think, maybe how did this person mean it? Or in this context, yes, it makes sense. And so then I think there's a lot of people who then leave these nasty comments who feel triggered by people's content, when I feel like it's just frustrating because I don't think that they took the time to be more open-minded with what the original intention of the content was. Don't get me wrong, there's still, like I said, people who post toxic things, but lately I feel like that's been something that I've been seeing in the online fitness community that's been frustrating. I'm like, this isn't a black and white thing. Like there's gray here, but so many people see things as black and white and then they leave this like nasty hate comment or they interpret it completely in the wrong way. And sometimes it feels like, at least for me as a creator in the space, sometimes I feel so freaking limited to the language and vocabulary and how I can explain things because I'm constantly worried that like someone is going to get triggered about something. And I know that kind of is also a part of life. Like you're not going to make everyone happy, but there's just this hypersensitivity from everyone that's getting a little bit too restrictive of just like allowing people to express what the freaking point is, Kind of piggybacking off the romantic question, how can I select the right friendships/relationships? Biggest thing that's coming to my mind, the immediate thing when I saw that question, again, work on yourself. The more that you can up-level your vibrational frequency, the more that you can upgrade your belief systems, the more that you can become a better you are going to be way more, your energy field, I want to say, is going to be way more discerning and way more specific. And that's what's going to naturally be drawing people that are right for you. I find that people who end up in really bad situations or, maybe toxic friendships is because they have no true sense of self, which then lacks to them not having any actual boundaries because they don't even know what they're like, who they are to their core. So they don't even know how to put up protection around that because there's no core for them, if that makes sense. So I think really finding your true sense of self, getting crystal clear on who you are, what you value, what your character is, what your morals are, really becoming the best version of you, cultivating that self-respect, cultivating that self-trust, that's going to then lead you to having stricter boundaries and knowing what you do and don't deserve, what you do and don't want in relationships and with friendships. And that is going to make your energy field so magnetic for the right matches because you're getting more specific. So your energy field is getting more specific. That is like the biggest thing with me in my friendships and relationships. Like whenever I've been like, oh, okay, I've been wanting to find better friends or get into a relationship, like I'm always going back to myself because everything is a mirror and we are constantly emitting this energy field that is either magnetizing or repelling certain things. And the more clear that you can get on yourself, again, the more crystal clear your kind of radio signal will be in your energy field, that you will be then attracting more aligned matches for you. I sound like a smoker. I'm sorry. Like I need a sip of my emergency. Touching again, someone asks how to navigate being single and wanting love, but also being scared to open up and get close with someone. Circling back to what I said about that childhood divorce, be brave and be courageous. There's a lot more life there when you're brave and willing yourself to open yourself up to all the freaking colors of the rainbow, speaking metaphorically for all the emotions and feelings that are out there. Get courageous and get brave. I'm so happy someone asked this. Someone said, "Hi Liv, hello. Can you explain more about your retreats, what to expect and what guests can gain?" I'm like so on the retreat train. There's also someone I follow on Instagram, Allie Ninfo, and she actually just hosted a retreat here in Park City, Utah. And I was like so into it, and I was like so invested in her lives and her stories and everything, because I just think retreats are so powerful. Like they're so transformative, and they're just such like a potent, immersive experience, and they really do have the power to be really life-changing. So my retreats basically, as of right now, they're basically I don't know. Sometimes I do this when I'm like filming for YouTube. I'll be like, basically and essentially and basically and essentially before I even go into what I'm trying to say. Because I just said basically I said basically twice in the span of like 3 words. Anyways, my retreats, they are kind of a synergy between a group travel trip and also retreat components. So I am someone who likes to do things when I'm on vacation, and I love traveling to beautiful places, and I want you guys to feel like you're getting still a vacation out of this, and I want you guys to feel like you're getting the absolute most out of your money and out of your time. And so I've also attended retreats where there has been nothing else planned other than just the workshop components, and I didn't really love that. So my retreats, we have actual traveling components. We're doing activities in these beautiful countries. We have a whole itinerary planned to be able to experience the country, explore, have that traveling component. But then I'm also am hosting workshops almost every day that have to do with like mindfulness, spirituality, mental health, personal development, self-awareness, all of that. And I also will host usually one workshop per retreat of doing a group workout. This is super customizable. It's body weight. It's very inclusive. I don't want anyone to feel like you have to be a certain fitness level to come to my retreats, because it's so not true. So we will have a group workout. It's mainly just to celebrate what our bodies can do, what we're capable of, and just to get some movement in while we're traveling. And so these workshops are very group oriented. They're kind of like women circles, and I will be leading the workshop. So we will be doing different like exercises with one another. I will give you guys a journal prompt. We'll reflect on it. We will all discuss it together. Especially like in the mornings, I will send everyone out in the group message a journal prompt and an affirmation every morning for you to reflect on personally. And so then when we come together for these journaling workshops, we will visit what we journaled about, what our thoughts were, and it just opens up the floor for a lot of group discussion, kind of like a support group. A lot of people will give their own advice, their 2 cents. I will obviously be giving my 2 cents and guidance, and I will kind of be leading the conversation. But so it's a lot of just like group talks, a lot of journaling, a lot of group exercises to work on rewriting limiting beliefs to help increase our sense of self. So there's just kind of like different workshops and exercises that we'll be doing. And then also I do run some guided meditations. So I'll be there leading everyone through a meditation together to really ground ourselves, to really connect to ourselves and just get familiar with meditations. And so in terms of what guests can expect to gain, it's always a newfound sense of self, just more reassurance in who you are, feeling more clarity and grounded in who you are, feeling greater connection to those around you, and also having more tools to self-regulate, to cope, for better self-awareness. I think the biggest thing that comes from these retreats is just an increased sense of self-awareness and understanding yourself and where your thought patterns are coming from, and ideally empowering you to know fully the power that you hold in the sense of creating your belief systems, how you speak to yourself, and how that all really contributes to your overall quality of life. And with that, I'm going to read with you guys 2 testimonials from my previous Costa Rica retreat, so you can hear actually from guests that were actually there. So this one from Emery, shout out Emery. She said, "This fully changed my life. This showed me who I have become and how proud I am of myself. I have always invalidated myself and my experiences. I've thought I was unworthy and not brave. This showed me that I am. All the women inspired me, and this retreat healed a part of me that I never knew I could heal. I want to see everyone again and explore with people I know are going to embrace me for who I am. I'm in love with this journey and all my girls. I'd recommend it to anyone trying to heal their sister wound and wanting to get outside their comfort zone with the greatest support system ever." So beautiful. It makes you want to cry. And then Malia said, Liv's Costa Rica retreat was everything and more. Not only is she a fantastic energy to be around and pulled the best out of us, but the group of women who'd gravitated to this retreat all came together to create the most amazing atmosphere. The environment was the perfect backdrop for us to adventure, meditate, be present, and make connections. I'm leaving the retreat feeling like I'm more myself, more grounded and fresh. I seriously can't thank Liv enough for putting herself out there and hosting us. I don't say that something is life-changing lightly, but this really was. So take that with what you will, but I just telling you, these retreats are so powerful, and even just getting yourself in the space, like in the container that's created from like-minded individuals, absolutely amazing. So I am going to Bali here, like literally in a week now, to host my third ever retreat. And I'm starting to plan my next one that is going to be in the US, like 90% sure it's going to be in the US, just so it's more accessible. It's going to be not as long. So I'm hoping it's going to be about a 4 to 5 day retreat. So it's easier to get time off of work and hopefully more affordable as well. But I would love for anyone to join us on the retreats, because they're really like my passion project at the moment, if I'm being honest. And then I need to answer this question because someone said, hello, Liv, hello. I usually listen on Apple Podcasts and downloaded Spotify just to participate in the Q&A. So I need to make sure I answer a question. Thank you for doing the most to submit your question. She said, I would love to hear your thoughts on twin flames. Thank you in advance. I love hearing your thoughts. I thought this was such an interesting, juicy question. And I saw this last night. And I was thinking about it because a couple of years ago, I was very invested into twin flames. I believe I even touched on this in a podcast episode back in the day. And I do believe in twin flames. My perception of them has just shifted because I personally have had greater understanding now with twin flames. So in the past, I used to think twin flames meant that they were like your divine counterpart, in the sense of like you are destined to marry them. That's your person. That's what I thought was like the idea of a soulmate, of like there's only one person that's meant for you out there. And that's what I thought that twin flame was like the ultimate person you were supposed to marry, have kids with if you wanted to have kids. Like that was your person you're supposed to do life with. And I do believe like that's one of the like definition of a twin flame. They are your divine counterpart. But something that was a hard pill for me to swallow is that just because someone's your twin flame doesn't necessarily mean and imply and promise that that's the person that you are meant to be in a committed, long-term, lifelong relationship with. For some it is, and for some it's not. Because the thing with twin flame connections, and again, I am no expert, this is just my own perception, interpretation, experiences. Your twin flame is your counterpart, right? So they are the utmost mirror for you, and they'll reflect back a lot of your own triggers and traumas to you. And so the thing with twin flame connections is they're very, very potent. They're very, very powerful, and they can almost be implosive, if that makes sense, meaning like so much energy, so much mirroring, so much triggering. Like if one of you is not ready or willing or committed to embark on the growth journey that's needed to have you guys come into synergy, it's not going to work, because you just have two powerful mirrors that are just like barking back at each other essentially. And so if your other person is not committed to facing their shadows, to healing from them, healing from their triggers, growing from them triggers, like it's going to be very hard to have a healthy relationship with your twin flame. And the thing is, the reason why I've taken a step back, because I've used to be very invested in the concept of twin flames, just being very honest. What pulled me back is I realized that a lot of people stay in toxic relationships because of this idea of, oh, they're my twin flame, I'm so connected to them, all this sort of stuff. But like the reality of it is, like, yes, we are spiritual beings, having a human experience, but there's the key to that, like we're having a human experience. So there's still a lot of 3D things that we're experiencing in life. And so just because we feel super connected and have all these soul ties does not mean that it's tangible or practical to live life with that person or to be in a committed relationship with that person. And so I know it can be so hard when you're feeling so connected to these people, but just the mature viewpoint that I had to come to accept and make peace with was that, like, just because I feel so connected spiritually and soulfully to this person does not mean that this is the best fit for the life that I'm trying to live and create during my time, like, on this 3D planet. Now, who knows? Things can shift and change. My opinions are always shifting and changing. But like thus far, that is the biggest thing that I've learned with twin flames. So do I believe in them? Yes. Do I believe that this means that this is the person you're meant to marry? Not necessarily, not for everybody. And it's really, twin flame connections can be challenging to translate to a healthy relationship if both of you are not willing to put in the work to grow and heal the triggers that you're presenting to each other in the relationship. You guys really asked so many amazing questions. These are all I could do a podcast episode on all of these. But last thing I wanted to touch on, because I appreciated that this person appreciated my example. They said, could you explain more about your beliefs on collective consciousness, which I love that you phrased it that way, and explain your traffic light example. This really resonated with me and would love for you to go into more detail / re-explain it. I love that episode so much. So basically in my previous episode, I spoke about my spiritual journey and I explained how I perceive the universe and how it works in my belief systems. And I use this example of a traffic light. And so that's what they're referencing. And yeah, I'm going to try to take another stab at explaining it again, because this was a really big, whoa, kind of revelation for me. Because I have always believed in the universe, not as this or in source. I haven't believed it as this separate singular entity. I believe in the interconnectedness of all things. And that's how I see the universe, divine intelligence, source. I don't think it's this one thing like the sun in the sky. It's something that's in all things, that's connecting all of us, that's making this thing called life move in synergy with one another. And so my first example of that was how the ocean works, right? There's different tides, there's different rip currents, and that's making the whole ocean move as a whole in a different way. Certain parts are moving in one way based on the rip current that's in that way. Other parts of the ocean are moving in a different way because they might have low tide on shore. So there's all these different things that are happening at once, but there's this still same kind of singular synergy, this interconnectedness of how the ocean works, even though it's impacting different parts differently. And there's not this one source that's making the ocean move the way it is or have these different things. It's something that's embodying the whole ocean, if that makes sense, right? And so furthermore, I had this revelation that it also really applies to traffic. And I see the universe, and I also touched on this in another podcast episode, where some people, when they're like, why am I not getting my manifestation? I'm wanting this. Why have I not met the love of my life yet? And usually that comes down to us not thinking on the bigger scale of there's more things in this grand scheme of things than just me. So I might feel like I'm ready for a relationship, but the person that's meant for me in this next phase, he still might be in a relationship and he may not be ready to break up with his person at this time. And so he's not ready to be in this relationship. So I might feel like I'm ready. Why isn't it coming? Why am I getting the short end of the stick? When really, again, there's this bigger picture that's going on, this domino effect that he needs to break up with his person. He needs to spend time alone, grow, so then he could be ready. And then you guys can find each other. And so a good visual is the same way in traffic, right? You may feeling like your manifestations or what you're desiring, feeling frustrated that that's not coming through, could be like you at a stoplight and you feeling like, what the heck? Why won't this change? I want it to turn. I want it to go. But you need to understand maybe that red light needs to happen so that the other oncoming traffic in the intersection can actually go through, because maybe someone who's going straight when you're trying to turn, maybe they need to go and arrive at this opportunity at this exact time, because this person that is going to become their businessman is going to arrive at that same intersection at the same time. So he needs to make sure he has a green light back in that intersection so that he arrives at the next intersection at the same time as his future boss that's going to give him this crazy new job opportunity. So that's kind of what I mean in the sense of everything is moving in synergy. And I guess I'm using that example for two different things. One, in the example that the universe is that divine intelligence of the beautifully, divinely timed timing of traffic, essentially, right? How everything, no one is sitting there being hey, you're going to move at this time, you're going to move at this time. It's just this interconnected flow of traffic that's happening unexplainably, all in synergy. That's how I kind of view how the universe works. And that's how I view the dynamic of humanity and of life and how things work and the timing of things. And so you may feel like you're getting blocked and getting the short end of the stick, But in reality, it's the domino effect of life, of needing some other traffic to pass through in order for you to be cleared to move through your traffic, or to have this crazy synchronistic timing that all of us deem as coincidences, right? It's like everything is so divine, and things that we feel like are blocks are actually things that are allowing all of the timing of life to be happening so perfectly. So that's kind of how I see it. I don't necessarily think that I don't feel like I'm like praying to the singular source or the singular man in the sky. It's like I do what I can with my spirituality to work with that synergy of all things in life and move with this interconnected force that's impacting all of us simultaneously, but in different ways, in order to have us all be moving in sync in one way or another so perfectly. It's kind of also like honestly, another good example is how the body works. Like there's so many processes that are happening in the body all at once so beautifully and like synergistically, that's all working together, but they're all separate, but they're all on like the exact right time. I'm not sitting here like thinking, okay, now I'm going to digest and now I'm going to deliver oxygen to my cells. It's like this just interconnected intelligent system. And that's how I view the universe of how life works. So that is it for this episode, you guys. Also, how exciting is it that we had our first ever podcast sponsor? Guys, we are breaking through barriers this year with the podcast. We had a guest on the podcast. Wait, you guys, I've been binging. Well, she's just been filling my For You page. I don't even have like an option. I just feel like I just sounded like JoJo Siwa. Like how raspy my voice sounds. Anyways, sorry. What was I going to say? Oh yeah, I feel like we've been breaking freaking borders with this podcast. We had a first guest on, now I have our first sponsor this year. So exciting. So thank you guys so much for all of your love and support always with the podcast. It means the absolute world to me. I really hope you guys got some value out of this episode. I would love it if you would share it with a loved one, someone else who you think would need to hear it. And if you're also looking for a way to support this podcast in a way that's completely free to you, it would mean so much to me if you guys could subscribe to the show on either or both Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Leave a rating and review. It takes 2 seconds. You just go to the show page on Spotify, click the 3 dots, and then hit rate show, tap how many stars you want to give it, and that's it. Also goes such a major way. Share it on your Instagram stories, tag me. I love seeing who's watching. It really makes my whole entire day. Also, before we go, I almost forgot to do the affirmation for the day. Let's do something simple. That was a core affirmation for me that I've been saying again. It's I live in the frequency of love, abundance, and gratitude. I live in the frequency of love, abundance, and gratitude. That's it, you guys. Thank you so much for dealing with my raspy voice this whole time. I really appreciate you guys taking the time to listen. I love you guys and value you guys so much. And hopefully I'll see you in my next epi. Peace out.